Genesis 6 marks a pivotal point in the biblical narrative. It is a chapter that bridges the gap between the creation of the world and the Great Flood, a cataclysmic event that reshapes the course of human history. It tells the story of a world spiraling into chaos. The once harmonious creation is now marred by violence and disorder, a stark contrast to the peace and order described in the earlier chapters of Genesis. Humanity, created in God's image, has strayed far from its intended path. The divine purpose for mankind to live in communion with God and steward the earth has been abandoned. Instead, people have turned their backs on their Creator, choosing their own way over God's. The chapter paints a vivid picture of a world consumed by wickedness. The imagery of dark, stormy skies and desolate landscapes reflects the moral and spiritual decay that has taken hold of humanity. This darkness sets the stage for one of the most well-known stories in Scripture, the Flood. The flood is not just a tale of destruction, but also one of renewal and hope, as it paves the way for a new beginning. The opening verses of Genesis 6 depict a world overrun by evil. The actions of humanity have reached a tipping point where the corruption and violence are so pervasive that they threaten the very fabric of creation. The hearts of humankind are filled with violence and corruption. This pervasive wickedness is not limited to a few individuals, but has spread throughout society, affecting every aspect of life. God, who had lovingly created humanity, looked upon his creation with sorrow. The divine grief is palpable as God witnesses the extent of human depravity and the pain it causes. The depth of human depravity grieved him deeply. This sorrow is not just a reaction to the sin itself, but to the broken relationships and shattered lives that result from it. This descent into darkness is a stark contrast to the perfect world described in Genesis 1. The initial creation was a place of beauty and harmony, where all creatures lived in peace and fulfilled their purpose. It highlights the destructive nature of sin. Sin is not just a personal failing, but a force that can corrupt and destroy entire communities and civilizations. It shows how far humanity has fallen from its original state of grace. The fall from grace is not just a theological concept, but a reality that has tangible effects on the world. The story of Genesis 6 serves as a warning. It is a cautionary tale that reminds us of the consequences of turning away from God and embracing sin. It reminds us of the consequences of unchecked sin. The devastation described in Genesis 6 is a direct result of humanity's choices, and it serves as a sobering reminder of the power of sin to destroy. But within this tale of despair, seeds of hope are planted. Even in the midst of judgment, God's mercy and grace are evident, offering a glimmer of hope for the future. They offer a glimpse into God's unwavering love and his plan for redemption. The story of the flood is not just about destruction, but about the possibility of renewal and the promise of a new beginning. Genesis 6 lays bare the consequences of sin's grip on humanity. It is a chapter that reveals the depth of human depravity and the profound sorrow it brings to the Creator. The ancient text serves as a mirror, reflecting the darkness that had enveloped the hearts of men and women. The text tells us that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. This wasn't just a minor lapse in judgment or occasional wrongdoing. It was a pervasive, all-encompassing corruption that tainted every aspect of human life. The earth, once a place of beauty and harmony, had become a breeding ground for malevolence. Every inclination of the human heart was only evil all the time. This stark statement underscores the totality of the moral decay. It wasn't just actions that were corrupt, but the very thoughts and intentions of humanity were steeped in evil. The heart, which should be the wellspring of life and goodness, had become a source of darkness. The world had become a place of violence, greed, and depravity. Communities were torn apart by strife, and the bonds that once held people together were shattered. The marketplace, which should have been a place of trade and fellowship, had turned into a battleground of selfish desires and ruthless competition. This rampant wickedness deeply saddened God. The Creator, who had fashioned humanity with love and care, looked upon the world with a heavy heart. The divine sorrow was not just a reaction to the actions of humanity, but to the loss of the potential for goodness and the beauty that had been marred by sin. Scripture tells us that it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. This expression of divine regret is profound. It speaks to the depth of God's emotional investment in his creation. The grief of God is not a sign of weakness, but of a love so deep that it feels the pain of betrayal and loss. God's sorrow highlights the depth of his love for his creation. It is a love that is willing to endure heartache and disappointment. It is a love that remains steadfast even in the face of humanity's rebellion. This divine love is not passive, it is active and engaged, always seeking the restoration and redemption of the fallen. It also emphasizes the severity of sin's consequences. Sin is not just a personal failing. It has far-reaching effects that ripple through families, communities, and even the natural world. The devastation seen in the ruins of ancient cities and the sorrow etched on the faces of the people are a testament to the destructive power of sin. Sin is not a trivial matter, it is a force that breaks and shatters, leaving behind a trail of destruction. The broken pottery and shattered clay tablets symbolize the fractured relationships and the loss of integrity that sin brings. It is a reminder that our actions have consequences that extend beyond ourselves. It breaks the heart of God. The image of a hand letting go of another hand captures the essence of this heartbreak. It is a separation that was never meant to be, a rift that causes deep sorrow. God's heartache is a reflection of his desire for closeness and communion with his creation. The language used in Genesis 6 is stark and uncompromising. It does not sugarcoat the reality of the situation. The bold text and intense expressions convey the urgency and gravity of the message. This is a wake-up call, a moment of reckoning that demands our full attention. The text doesn't shy away from depicting the bleak reality of a world consumed by evil. The scenes of ruins and battles are not just historical records. They are a visual representation of the spiritual and moral decay that had taken hold. The arguments and fights are manifestations of the inner turmoil and conflict that sin brings. This is not a time for sugarcoating or euphemisms. The seriousness of the situation calls for a clear and direct message. The stern lectures and serious expressions are necessary to convey the weight of the consequences. It is a time for honest reflection and a call to change. The gravity of the situation demands our attention. The dramatic sky with dark clouds serves as a metaphor for the looming judgment and the need for urgent action. The concern on the faces of the people is a reflection of the inner realization that something must change. God's grief is a testament to the depth of his love. The tears and cries to the heavens are not just expressions of sorrow, but also of hope. They are a plea for mercy and a desire for reconciliation. The comforting embrace signifies the possibility of healing and restoration. He is not a distant deity who remains unaffected by human suffering. The compassionate expressions and caring actions show that God is deeply involved in the lives of his creation. He tends to our wounds and offers comfort in our times of need. He is intimately involved in the lives of his creation. The shared meals and supportive gestures are symbols of the community and fellowship that God desires for us. He is present in our daily lives, offering guidance and support. He feels our pain and shares our sorrows. The scenes of mourning and empathy show that God is not indifferent to our struggles. He walks with us through our darkest moments and shares in our grief. The story of Genesis 6 reminds us that our choices have consequences. The conflicted expressions and difficult decisions highlight the importance of our actions. We are not just passive observers, we are active participants in the unfolding story of humanity. They affect not only ourselves, but also those around us, and ultimately our relationship with God. The acts of helping and praying together are reminders that we are interconnected. Our choices ripple through the fabric of our communities and our relationship with the divine. It is a call to live with intention and to seek the good in all that we do. Genesis 6 introduces another layer of complexity to the narrative, with the mention of the sons of God and the Nephilim. This chapter of the Bible has intrigued scholars, theologians, and lay people alike for centuries, as it delves into a mysterious and somewhat controversial part of biblical history. The text states that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. This simple yet profound statement has led to numerous interpretations and theories about the nature of these beings and their actions. This passage has sparked much debate and interpretation over the centuries. Scholars have pored over ancient texts, debated in academic circles, and written countless commentaries in an attempt to unravel the mystery. Who were these sons of God? Some scholars believe they were fallen angels who rebelled against God. This interpretation suggests a dramatic and celestial rebellion, where these angels descended to earth driven by their desires and defiance. Others interpret them as descendants of Seth, the righteous son of Adam, who intermarried with the ungodly descendants of Cain. This view presents a more human-centric explanation, focusing on the mingling of two distinct lineages with vastly different moral compasses. The Nephilim, described as mighty men, which were of old men of renown, are believed to be the offspring of these unions. These beings, often depicted as giants or heroes of ancient times, add another layer of intrigue and complexity to the narrative. The presence of the sons of God and the Nephilim further amplifies the sense of chaos and corruption in the world. Their existence seems to symbolize a world teetering on the brink of moral and spiritual collapse. Their arrival seems to exacerbate the already rampant wickedness. The world, already struggling with sin and corruption, finds itself further plunged into darkness with the advent of these powerful and enigmatic beings. Some interpretations suggest that their intermingling with humans contributed to the rapid spread of evil. The union of the divine and the mortal in this context appears to have accelerated the moral decay of humanity. Regardless of the specific interpretation, the presence of these supernatural beings underscores the severity of the situation. Their very existence serves as a testament to the profound and pervasive nature of the corruption that had taken hold of the world. It highlights the need for divine intervention. The world, mired in chaos and corruption, cries out for a higher power to restore order and righteousness. The world is spiraling out of control, and only God can set things right. This narrative sets the stage for the subsequent events in the Bible, where divine intervention becomes not just a possibility, but a necessity to save humanity from its own self-destruction. Amidst the darkness and depravity, a glimmer of hope emerges in the form of Noah. Genesis 6, verse 8 tells us, "But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord." In a world consumed by wickedness, Noah stood out for his righteousness. He was a man of faith who walked with God. God, seeing Noah's unwavering faithfulness, chose him to carry out a remarkable plan. God decided to cleanse the earth of its wickedness through a great flood, but he would spare Noah and his family. They would become the seeds of a new beginning for humanity. God made a covenant with Noah, promising to preserve him and his family. This covenant represents a turning point in the narrative. It signifies God's unwavering love for his creation and his desire for a fresh start. Noah's story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, God sees and values those who remain faithful to him. It is a message of hope and redemption, showing that even when all seems lost, God can bring about renewal and restoration.